I wonder if you could experience something more about this connection in the heart and this feeling of love that I sometimes experience now fleetingly.
The feeling of love and the feeling of being complete, which means also, if you are complete, there is no lack. They are one and the same. The experience of completeness or of love is always the same nominally, and phenomenally, it is always different. That's something we have to understand, because then once we understand that the differences are only phenomenal, we stop having any preference from this way for love to manifest or that way for love to manifest. And love being also sense of lack, experience of our own being, experience of completeness, experience of being one with the other or the others, etc. One with the world, that life loves us, that the world is not our enemy, that the world is not something to reject. So the phenomenal expressions are always different, but the happiness or the inner peace is always the same. So ultimately, we come to the understanding that the phenomenal differences don't really matter. They are there only to celebrate that which is always present.
Yes.
You understand that in your question, you made a distinction, right?
Yes.
And that as a result, the moment there is a distinction, it can only be phenomenal.
Yes. What I understand now is that you're saying that the reference of being in the heart is not a sensation around my heart. That's just a phenomenal experience that can happen or not happen, and it has not, and it's it's just more than that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You can never grab as a phenomenon that which is not a phenomenon, and which creates all phenomena.
I understand.
If you try to grab it, you kill it. You have to keep it mysterious.
Yes, and if it's there, then enjoy it, and if it's not there, then it's no problem.
It's like the story of the goose that was laying golden eggs, and every day there was a golden egg. And then out of greed, the owner of the goose kills the goose thinking there was a treasure inside. And instead, he finds nothing, no gold inside. You see? So he wanted to know what was inside, instead of just enjoying the golden eggs. So metaphorically, if you will, if he tried to experience awareness as a phenomenon, it's a spiritual murder of the goose.
So it's a misunderstanding that if I use the word sage just in this conversation, that a sage is like 24 hours per day living with his burning sensation in his heart.
That is already a mistake as
Yes.
Krishna Menon used to say, before we talk about sages, we have to understand that there is only one sage. That's the first understanding. Otherwise, we don't know what we are talking about. Most people, they think they talked of sages, meaning most people, they don't know what they are talking about.
And the second understanding?
What?
You said the first understanding is that there's only one sage. I thought you were going to say about something about the second understanding.
No.
Okay.
Did I say that? I have to check the record.
Yes.
But perhaps I meant the first and foremost and most important and primeval understanding. No, or perhaps we first have, what I meant is we first have to understand that there is only one sage before we can answer the question you put to me. You see? Mm-hmm. Because we first have to be clear about what the question means. And implicitly, the question refers to a sage, to we before and we after, whatever, a becoming of an individual from being an ignorant to being a sage. There is no such a becoming of an individual. The sage has always been the sage. And there has never been an ignorant individual. There has only been the appearance, the seeming of such a separate individual.
Okay, thanks.
Hello.
Yes, Mohammed. Yes, hi.
Hi. So I just want to ask, when the understanding that consciousness is universal starts to arise in me, there seems to also be sort of fear arising, and I think it's the fear coming from, the separate identity, so I was wondering, do you have any advice on what to do or how to change my understanding? Because like when it starts to arise, and it sort of just starts to arise, there's just sort of like a fear that seems to block it, or it seems to be in the way. So I was wondering, do you have any advice for that?
There are two kinds of fear, rational and irrational. Rational fear can be directly traced back to the belief that we are a separate and limited awareness, or of this awareness that we know to be is dependent upon the body, was born, will die, etc. So it follows from this understanding that the path towards the ending of fear goes through the investigation of this belief to be this separate entity. Because if it turns out that this belief was without foundation, then all the implications of it, in particular, the rational fear, will go away. It may take time, but it will go away. The irrational fear is of a different type. It is something we have inherited somehow directly from others. I've often told this experience I had when I was 3 years old. We were at the beach with my parents. And then someone had drowned. And the body was removed from the water and brought to the beach. I didn't see it. I didn't see any of that. And then there was a group of adults surrounding it. I never saw the body. I only see this wall of human bodies and what they were saying. And what they were saying, and they were saying, noyé, noyé, c'est noyé, 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 drowned, drowned, drowned. A word, the meaning of which I didn't know. But at the same time, I felt a terror in me. A terror. That was completely irrational, right? I didn't know what the word meant. And I didn't know what was there behind this human wall. So what I got through empathy, my mirroring neurons, whatever, I got the deep fear of these people, their deep fear of death. That's what I got. So when we live in ignorance, this deep fear of death of absolute disappearance is present, albeit apparently tamed, suppressed, repressed. It is there in people. And as very early, in our very early childhood, even before the age of 3, when I mentioned that, we are immersed in it. We are bathed in it. You have to understand that. We are bathed not only in the water bath, but also in the bath of ignorance. And that goes deeply in our body. And this pattern of separation is imprinted deeply in our body, but it is not natural. That's the good news about it. It is not natural. So as we peel away the layers of ignorance, both on the rational level. First, when we peel it away on the rational level, we become interested, and then we stand as a witness of all perceptions. This irrational fear comes to the surface. First, it may disguise itself. In other words, it's not pure fear, but it is fear of wide open spaces, fear of flying, fear of getting on an elevator, fear of being abandoned, fear of being judged by others. All kinds of fear we are. But at the root of it is this deep existential anxiety, which is related directly to the belief of being something which can be affected. There is no way out of it unless and until we are open to the possibility that that which we are cannot be affected. That's the game changer. Then, when fear comes up, then, if it has lost its foundation as a result of a glimpse, it can be fully accepted. So it will go up, reach a climax, and then vanish. And this wave, the intensity of this wave over time will be less and less. If there has not been a glimpse of our true nature, then by welcoming it, this fear, accepting it up to its very end, then there will be a glimpse.
Okay, thank you for that. And then there was also another one. Why can't awareness, the one reality, why can't the one reality be not aware?
Why can't,
like, why is it possible for the one reality to be not aware, as in
no.
Why
no.
not?
Reality is made of awareness, and awareness is made of reality. Reality is not made of mind. And reality is not made of matter either. Mind and matter are made of reality. And there are possibly other forms of reality than mind and matter. Such as ideas, for instance. But yeah. So if the question is, can reality be unaware? The answer is no. Can it be more or less aware? The answer is no. Reality is, look at yourself. You don't have levels of awareness as many people believe. There are simply different states of mind states, some with apparent clarity, some without apparent clarity, but the witness of the clarity and the witness of the clear state and the witness of the confused state is not in a state. The witness of the states, aka awareness, is not in the states it witnesses. It is not affected either by the states. We have to be able to discriminate, and that's very important, between mind and reality. Otherwise, we fall into the trap of idealism.
Right. Okay. And then there was just this one last question. I've been watching your videos on feelings and suffering, and I think I have quite a, or at least I have an approach that seems to be in line with what you've said in your previous videos. But some suffering has sort of been arising in the body, like some sort of feeling suffering, and then I've noticed that after a while I just sort of start to drop into a kind of silence state where it doesn't feel happy. I don't, and at times it feels like I'm not a person, but it seems very silent, not dead, but kind of silent. And I guess I'm sort of observing reality and
yeah, it doesn't have perfume, right?
Right. Is that okay?
I mean, everything is okay. Yeah, it's okay, but understand that the absence of a state in which there are apparently a state of mind without perception is still mind. It could be called a blank state. There is no juice, no perfume. And what we have to understand is this, is that states of mind elapse in time. Awareness is timeless, eternal. The awareness is the eternal now. So there is no time there. So any state that elapses in time is still a perception, is still something perceived by the mind, or is still mind stuff. The Sufis, they say, they have this word fana, you know, which means extinction. And they talk about the extinction of the extinction, the double extinction, the double fana, if you will. The first extinction is the absence of objects, but which is still an object of the mind, still a manufactured state. When we understand that the revelation of that the pure state, the state without, which is truly without objects, without, cannot be in time, we are on the right track. We are on the path to eternity. And this is rich, this is experienced in a glimpse, in a moment of understanding. That's that which we have to treasure the most. These glimpses of understanding about reality, awareness, us, and also perceptions, phenomena, time, space, all these basic philosophical, if you will, in the good sense, objects of our interest. You know, this is a way to find out that mind is in time, and we try to find stability in time, in things that are in time, but things that are in time are impermanent. And we can never find stability there. Never.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to, yeah, thanks.
Yes, hi, Fragon.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Francis, I had a question about fear. In your response to Muhammad, you said that when the fear rises, we can be open to welcoming it completely. And I see that happening in my experience.
In this welcoming, find out first whether it is rational or irrational.
I see.
And the first element, do I have a reasonable explanation for this fear? Because if it is rational, you can always trace it back either to a clear and present danger, which is, in this case, is natural, or to the belief to be a separate entity. And that brings about clarity about your fears. That's very important, because then, since the belief to be a separate and limited awareness is optional, the fear becomes at least potentially optional. Now, if the fear is absolutely irrational, in other words, if it doesn't stem out of a thought of being limited and separate, but it seems to be more from a gut feeling, that then allow for this gut feeling to manifest.
Meaning, don't push it away or change it.
Yeah, accepting it fully. Yeah, accepting it as, because this gut feeling may tell you, you know, oh, I am becoming insane if I keep moving in this direction. If I keep moving in this direction, I'm not going to be able to make a living. I'm going to be committed in some mental institution, or I'm going just to die. My heart is going to stop beating, you know, or my breath, I cannot breathe any longer. I mean, you can have deep panic manifestations. The good news is that the body doesn't want to die, and the body is going to trump all of these feelings. So you can trust your body, that your body will keep you alive, will keep itself alive no matter what. So that's why you can really trust. In the case of these irrational feelings, that you can trust that you can embrace them, you can let them come completely, because often that's what is needed. Often it is, because at the end it is needed to face all of our fears.
I noticed that for some of those, there's a feeling that I could be my own mother and tend to whatever the weeping child is needing in some sense. And just give him some space to be. And many years ago, this would take weeks for this kind of a feeling to pass away. But now I notice that it goes away in half an hour. My question then is, you were giving some examples of what kind of gut fears the body can present. What happens in my case is the fear that if I don't get this object of desire, then I will never find happiness, which I know is irrational, even based on my own experience in day-to-day life.
But sometimes we need to go through the experience that life kind of offers us.
I'm not sure I understand what you meant by the experience that life offers us.
Well, you are afraid of something, right? Or you feel that your happiness is dependent upon something. In fact, it isn't.
Right.
But it is not the investigation requires some experimentation also. It's not like you listen to the guru says, be not attached to objects. But that's not what this guru says, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying investigate the truth of what you are. And then see as a result of that what happens to your attachment to objects, people, experiences. It is not at all the same, because if you hear be not attached to objects and you go into a strategy of suppression, which you find often in religions, you know, don't have this, don't have that, don't have that, don't have that, don't have that, offer it to God. Well, is God really that greedy a person? You know, and is God really that needy that he needs for you to offer all this stuff? Because if that's the case, it's a very poor God that he needs all of that. You see, so there is something fundamentally wrong in this approach, which is moving away from life. But what has to be understood is that there is nothing wrong with desires, but that if we believe that the fulfillment of a phenomenal desire is going to bring about the happiness we seek, then we are mistaken, and life will prove us completely wrong. No object, no relationship, nothing will do it for us, because only God will bring about this absence of lack, this ultimate satisfaction. So it's a razor's edge we have to dance on between the two abysses. On one side, rejection of the world, and on the other side, desire for the world. So the desire has to be always, but when I say has to be always, it's not an act of will. The desire naturally gets reoriented towards God. As a result, the world is accepted, fully welcomed as God's creation, as being God manifested. You see? So that's the razor's edge. On the edge, there is God.
Yes. I understand. So life will naturally bring about some of the learning for some of the desires and allow me to see the truth in them.
Yeah. What we have to understand is that in its first movement, most desire is innocent, in fact. But it is the moment we believe that our happiness is dependent on the fulfillment of this desire, that the desire loses its innocence. Whereas if it is understood as something, a new experience that life is offering to celebrate, to grow also in wisdom, it's different. Also, when we understand that no matter what, we'll be fine, you see. And that we trust life to guide us. To guide us like a sailor trusts the compass. To guide the boat through a difficult passage.
I understand. Thank you, Francis.
Hi, Francis. Hi, Francis.
Yes.
Hi. I just was hoping you could speak a little bit about that, about neurological conditions and consciousness.
I have some experience of it because both one of my grandmothers and my father had dementia. And really, it's all about love. First, I have a friend who was part of a team doing research on Alzheimer's with the Massachusetts General Hospital. So she was visiting Alzheimer's patients and following them over the years. And I asked her about their perceived state of happiness. And she told me that based upon her observation, those who were happy campers before the onset of dementia seem to remain happy camper throughout the dementia itself. And that the ones who weren't, my dad was not a happy camper before, and he was not a happy camper during. You see, it's just that he was full of worries before, and then he still had these worries while he was in dementia. And I remember asking him, you are worried? And he would say, yes, I'm worried. And I asked him, what are you worried about? And he would try to find and say, I don't know. You see? What is important is to understand that, because we often project onto people who are, it's not just true of people who have dementia, it's true also of people who have some other mental issues that are of a somatic origin and not that. We project that if we were in their situation, we would have to be miserable. Sometimes, yes, sometimes people are really suffering with some neurological diseases, but sometimes we have to realize that each of us, for long hours every night, we go nuts, right?
Absolutely.
In our dreams, we are completely nuts. In our dreams, we experience Alzheimer's, right? Because we don't know where we are. We don't know what happens the previous moment,
everything
right?
blends together. Things change in a second.
Right? So the question is, can our dreams move from dark dreams to better dreams? Can we help people, who are there? And so, the first condition is, the Hippocrates oath, first, do no harm.
Yeah, well.
Because often, by wanting people to change, to be different, our non-acceptance of their condition, then add some weight to their condition, because they will perceive our worries, they will perceive our heaviness, our heavy heart, and so on, right? Our non-acceptance. And that will get transmitted because people with Alzheimer's, they still have this relation. Their mirroring neurons are still working. You see what I mean? Empathy is still working. My grandmother, she didn't recognize me. She didn't know I was her grandson. I was just familiar to her. So she was in front of the TV. I was sit on the sofa next to her. I would take her hand. And she was watching these images that were meaningless for her, you see, but I could feel that she loved feeling my hand. That was her dream. You see what I mean? No pressure, no expectation, just love, right? So the thing is that and this love expresses itself, in many ways, and we cannot say how, but it is this understanding, right? And to find the way of love in every situation with your dad, it's likely to go worse. At some point, he may feel that you are, I don't know, does your does your mother have sisters, or does he have sisters? At some point, he may feel you are believe you are one of those. My dad thought I was my mother's brother.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be open to these possibilities. You
It
see,
happens, yeah.
just if he was a happy camper, keep him a happy camper. And if he wasn't, you see, love can still get transmitted. Make his dream a better dream.
Okay. Thank you. That's good advice. Thank you, Francis.
Okay, yes, Chris, go ahead.
Hi, Francis.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Hold on, I'm just going to turn off my self view. It's very distracting.
What a background. What are you doing?
My shop. I'm an artist and a bunch of things. A bunch of things I am. Well, all the talk about fear, I'm experiencing in real time the moment I raised my hand for this question. So I figured I'm doing the right thing. So my experience recently has been of, much abiding. I've had a lot of time recently, and, I've been experiencing a beautiful sense of peace in my awareness when that arises. And yesterday, I've also in the past had this pattern of depression, feeling, noticing that hopelessness can arrive in my awareness, for lack of a better way to put it. But yesterday, the part I wanted to share was something about some of your teaching around being an experimenter has been beautifully echoing in my mind. And yesterday I woke up and noticed some of that pattern of feeling depressed again coming back. And immediately there was a sense of, oh, here's something I have to deal with, when I just want to come back to this peaceful feeling. In that noticing, I noticed it lifted a little bit. And then at some point I sat down, Francis, and I had my coffee, and your voice came in my mind and was like, and I felt, screw it. Let's see if I can make this worse. Let's see, something about the beautiful part of like, let's just play with this. And I just really intently tried to think of all the thoughts that I was associating with the depression. I'm not making money right now, blah, blah, blah. And I had to check myself a couple of times to be like, am I really trying to do this? Because I did have a moment of fear, like, what if I trigger a deep depression right now? And I thought, no, come on. Like, if this is, if I am ever present awareness, then let's try. And the most beautiful thing was happening as I was sincerely trying. That beautiful awareness came back, and just, that feeling of heaviness lifted. And it was really fun. It was really fun. So I've been playing with this thing, and I just want to share with you this sort of alternate technique of being like, and not a technique, but like, wonder if I can, so I started doing that with other things. I wonder if I can limit my awareness just to my body. Instead of trying to always let it expand, can I just contain it, And I'm finding this beautiful thing where it's like, this way is helping me, because it's making me realize I don't control that.
Yeah, we control very little, right?
Yeah, but something in me chose to do that. Or I think.
Yeah, it's a spirit of discovery. And by trying to move to the opposite, if you will, of what you thought you were supposed to be doing, you stop this doingness, you stop. Yeah, but my words are useless, because you went through experience. And yes.
I had the moment where I thought, wait, is this like trying to get in my car to run myself over?
Is this kind of what?
Is this kind of like trying to get into my car to run myself over?
Yeah.
You know, like, am I inhabiting my awareness to try to change the state of it or something?
Well,
anyway,
it will change automatically. Awareness has an impact on the state of mind and on the state of the body. Yes. But that's a byproduct, you know, that's, it's a kind, it should be an unintended consequence instead of an intended one. If it is an intended one, we miss the mark. And the mark is always with awareness itself, with reality. And then when you hit the mark, then all kinds of things happen.
So that kind of leads into the other question I had, because this experience of the sensations in, I won't say in the body, but I'm noticing sensations of like a beautiful heaviness. It feels like a heavy light feeling. And
yeah,
it feels wonderful. And I guess my intuition is this is all downstream. Is that kind of the way what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about that sensation.
Yeah, when you accept the heaviness with love, you see, the heaviness dissolves in it and love remains.
Thank you.
Yes, hi Ezra.
Hello. I kind of have questions around what I call a checkup on the journey. So about a year ago, I consciously took a job that would give me a fair amount of free time, which, other than seeing what I now discover as absurdities of the way government contracts are run, and I mean, they're absolutely absurd. They're almost make-work programs, has largely accomplished what I wanted, and that's been great. However, the reason I wanted more free time was that a little over a year ago, I decided that I wasn't happy with my current retirement plans financially. And a friend of mine has become my mentor, and I wanted the free time to do investing in real estate, which I've now been doing. So just a very practical thing to do. And parts of it have been really enjoyable, but the kicker is there are times when I kind of lose any semblance of what could possibly be called a spiritual bearing, or living in a state of recognition, or anything like, you know, it's not, I get reactive, I get hot-headed, usually not at people. And it's it's almost a psychedelic experience in a way, because I'm not fully identified with the reactivity. There's always a part of me that sees it, but it's still very intense sometimes, on the body level, on the thought level, and a little bit the habit that wants to turn it into more, into a story, into a me. But that generally somehow I kind of call bullshit on that pretty quickly. But the outplay in the body and the mind is real. Well, here's one of the positives. And sometimes I would normally just be quiet about my frustrations or things that I want different. And now I'm practicing being communicative with contractors. Hey, you did it this way. I asked you to do it this other way. The way you did it, I'm afraid will lead to a water issue, etc. etc. So I'm learning to communicate through my concerns and not just hold on to them or just feel negative feelings. And so maybe there's a lot of personal growth there. That could be. But I have to be honest that now it's been about a year in, and I really have doubts about the direction I've taken. You know, if someone were to ask me, am I following my bliss in this? I would shrug and say, no. I mean, I could sugarcoat it
But
if I'm really accepting,
my recommendation to you would be, don't worry about it. Just forget everything about the past. Pretend it has not happened. That's all. Just forget. Live your life as you want to live it. Don't be bothered by any of that.
Okay, follow-up question.
You need this freedom. You need it. You need to do this, to conduct this experiment and see whether the path catches you. But just live your life, going to follow your, forget the past,
okay.
forget everything, just allow for your doubts to be as solid as possible. Go back to life as you used to live it. I'm not the Pope.
No, what I mean is.
No, but
yeah,
what I meant is just what I said.
I'm missing something.
And also,
well, what I mean is, are you saying let's stop this silly?
When I say I'm not the Pope, I also mean it because it's a fact, right?
No, yes. I guess what. I mean, on a purely pragmatic level, this idea of having a passive income from some real estate seems like a very good idea, right? I've invested in some companies a while ago, and I basically didn't do well. So I'm like, I'm not where I want to be financially.
I cannot advise you on that because I am very poor.
No.
I've lost a lot of money on Bitcoin, and don't.
Not Bitcoin, no. What I mean is, there's another side of my mind that just says, dude, why are you even worrying about money? Who cares? Life, like, that's a crazy thing to worry about. Just go live. And when you say forget the past, is that what you mean?
But we have to make a distinction between the needs we have, right? And a rational way to kind of meet the needs. But if the needs cannot be met, that's not the end of us. That's not, in other words, there are relative worries that correspond to meeting, fulfilling needs. But they are not, the difference is that in wisdom, we don't connect these practical worries to a fundamental, never-ending existential worry. So what is important is the disappearance of the fundamental existential worry. You see, that's often it is misunderstood that, well, if I get enlightened, whatever that means, then all worries, all issues will disappear. As long as there is a body here, there will be issues. Ramana Maharshi had cancer. That's a big issue, right? So let's not pretend. Let's not go into this New Age stuff, this disembodied myth that doesn't bear any resemblance to the reality of our experience. No, it's about inner peace. And inner peace is simply what happens when the fundamental existential worry associated the inseparable with and the inseparable companion of the belief to be a limited awareness. When this worry disappears, that's all that's needed. Everything falls into place. Then you can worry about the interest rates going up, the value of your real estate going down, the variable rate mortgage going up, whatever.
Are you saying that once you have that peace, then just follow your freedom? Don't concern so much on the practical level, the so-called practical level.
You do your best on the practical level and you have a practical concerns, but it's not an endless thing. It's not something that deprives you from your life. You take whatever steps are necessary. You fix the leak on the roof or whatever, you see, and that's it. Maybe expensive, that's it. Here you lose, here you, here you lose, here you win, you know, and you look at the average and you see what the general trend of the business is.
I guess this is the first time I've been very lucky in life. This is the first time I've ever engaged in a business that was based on aiming for an outcome. You know, obviously when I invest, you know, in this, retirement fund or whatever, like everybody else, I hope the stocks go up. But other than that, you just put your money in and forget it. Here, I gave myself a 3-year deadline to evaluate. I'm 1 year in. It's going okay as a business. It's taking more of my thought process and attention than I imagined it would. But and when I have a bad contractor, I find I get charged and have more work to do. But it brings up this question of, part of me wants to just, the reason I'm doing it is to be footloose and more fancy free with having my baseline taken care of. If I can set up that situation, which would feel very fortunate. I have modest needs. So even a modest regular income would take care of that. And then the truth is, I want to just be fancy free. And the question that comes to mind is, it's like, why wait? If you know where you want to, go be fancy free and then figure out the income on the way. Who cares? It'll show itself. But part of me thinks, that tends to be pretty impractical. That's the question I'm basically asking. There are a certain amount of just nakedly.
These are practical questions, and I understand that when you are a truth lover, you're also a freedom lover, and that your endeavor is to express your life artistically, meaning with freedom, meaning free from the repetitious ways that society imposes on us, going to the office every morning, being a slave of the government or a slave of the big corporation, being just an instrument, being instrumentalized, and alienated. I understand that. And it's a natural movement because truth lovers, they are also freedom lovers, and they are artistically minded. So, and it is a legitimate aspiration, this freedom. And it is normal to seek in various ways. And a good practical approach is sometimes to have a minimum kind of income, because then it gives you the opportunity to play, in a playful way, to try to find, where your interest is, and then you'll be good at whatever you do. And this interest may evolve over time. That's an artistic life. The idea is that fundamentally we are all artists. In that the real work of art we are doing is our own life, how we live it. And the artistic view of life, this contemplation, is free from the past, free from the thoughts, free from society, free from conditioning, fresh and new.
Yeah, it's funny. Last night, just yes and that, when there was some, well, the thought arose, like, how did I get here where I'm, texting a contractor late at night about what they need to change and being frustrated by, like, how did I get here? And then suddenly the mind wanted to go back to, oh, I made a mistake a year ago. And then I looked and I saw I literally applied the idea, well, what if I just say that that was God? And because I have no control over it now, the one that's here doesn't know what to do to change that, no time machine. And suddenly the whole thing shifted. It's like, oh, the whole moment became completely new and like a bizarre moment of improv given to me where the offer from the world is a contractor doing something wrong, and how I respond is this moment. It's up to me. I don't have to attach past or future to it. And I was like, oh. So there's something very potent in this process from it's not conditioned, like that unconditioned is available regardless. It doesn't it just don't have to. I mean, basically the essence of my question is, did I make a mistake a year ago? And it's a silly question, but there's another part of it, which is how to journey.
Just make it your yoga, whatever you are doing in this moment. Make it your yoga exercise. Check your fears, your worries, your and also your freedom from it. If you can be free from the problem is kind of already resolved. Then life will resolve it for you. If you are not free from the problem, even if there is an apparent resolution, the same problem will come back to haunt you down the road. So,
okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. I do sometimes think that there are a lot of physiological tensions that I haven't explored, and they're coming up through this. And so there's very much the need. I mean, that's the yoga you're describing is kind of what I'm doing, which is, oh.
You see, once we are on the path, it's very difficult, I would say impossible, to leave the path. It's just that even if we believe we leave the path, whatever we are doing in life is still our yoga. So take advantage of it. Okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Jason, go ahead.
Hi, Francis. Nice to meet you. I wanted to ask about the investigation. I'll give you an example. Yesterday I had a job trial. I was working in the kitchen, and it's been a while since I've been working in the kitchen. So I had my first shift yesterday, and showing up to the job, I had all these tensions and all this fear, and it's mainly to do with what it's mainly to do around with what people think of me and what people see me as. And then so all the attention is on the neurosis of how do I appear? Am I confident? All this kind of stuff. So how can I, when you talk about investigating, how can I, how can I investigate that? How can I investigate that?
Well, when you are in the midst of it, all you can do is see what's going on, and you see what's going on. You see that is an obstacle in your life, that's something that you would rather not have, but somehow you can't help, right? Having those feelings and thoughts, right? Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what you have to understand, because the way I came to this path was a little similar. There were two major factors in my case. One was that I realized that my life was a failure, a total failure, that apparently, right? Apparently, later on I knew it was not the case, but at the time, it was a total failure. Whatever I had studied, worked towards, marriage, having a child, making money, getting bored in a job I didn't like, getting sick, all of that together, I felt completely helpless for the first time, because before that, I kind of trusted on my own energy, on my own stamina and courage, you know, to make a living, to do all of that stuff, and I could do that. But at the same time, there was a price to pay in terms of happiness. In terms of happiness, total failure, I was miserable. The other thing was that in my social relations with others, in social circumstances, I had this fear of being judged, this fear of not being adequate, this fear of kind of shame. And I wanted to get rid of that. So that was a two-pronged thing. In other words, I was trying still to find a reason for my lack of happiness. And I had kind of decided that the real reason why I was not happy was because in my relation with other people, also, it was a failure. And on my way, the natural as a scientist was to try to find some therapy or some psychological solution. I envisioned actually at the time going to America to have some sessions with a guy called Janov. But on my way there, not to America, but trying to find a psychological solution, I ran into the, let's say, the path through Krishnamurti and Zen and Jan and Advaita, Vedanta, all of that stuff. And the first thing I realized was that all this, first that I was not clear about the goal in my life. That the goal had always been something, to achieve something, job, money, power, relationship, children, etc., etc. And that I had never thought that the goal could be something much simpler, which is happiness. Big difference between wanting a car, wanting a relationship, wanting money, and wanting happiness. Very different. Can I just say, why?
Can I ask, you know, happiness is a word, and happiness can just be another thing that we're chasing. Like, it's just another word. I'm not happy now, and I want to be happy in the future. And I think the times that I've been most miserable, is when I want to be happy.
You define it quite well. How do we know happiness? Because we miss it. So that's the definition of happiness. That's very simple. It's not complicated. If we don't miss anything, there is no need to have the word happiness. If we have no sense of lack, who cares about the word happiness? But if we have a sense of lack, it means something is missing. Experientially, something is missing. So my definition of happiness is whatever is missing. So then it is not a word, right? I'm trying to connect it experientially to your experience, because you tell me, oh, happiness is a word. It means this to that person. It means that to that person. No. It is that which is missing. Not that which we believe is missing. That which is really missing.
And that which is missing is self-knowledge.
Whatever you call it. But when you find it, it knows itself. So that's what I realize. That the thing I realize is that instead of aiming for this or this or this or that, which was allegedly the solution, which was allegedly the happiness, or whatever it was that was missing, to focus with more precision, to find out what is it that is really missing. And then the other thing I understood, and it was still in the beginning of my search, was that all my desires for this, and that. In fact, if I try to satisfy one by one, it would be an endless process. That I had to go to the common source of all, to the missing element.
I.
And then, as a result, for instance, instead of trying to get rid of my being shy or ashamed or whatever in a public setting, unable to speak, unable to, that was just one goal, that I had to bypass this goal and to go to the source, to address the source. Really, what is missing? And then somehow, that led me to my teachers, that led me to the realization that, in fact, nothing was missing. That we are all perfectly equipped for happiness, just that we are looking for it in places where it cannot be found. And that ultimately we are experientially the happiness we are seeking. We are the relationship we are seeking. We are the missing part we are seeking. It's right there.
Well, I guess the question becomes then how do we know that? How do we see that? And you know, I've
well, how do we? You came here, nothing happens by chance. You ask questions, you get answers. These answers, you listen, and then you think about it. You think about what has been told to you. You do your own research. You do your own investigation. You know your own feelings, your own sense of lack, your own moments of satisfaction. the answer you receive trigger new questions. These questions can be formulated. Either they can be put here, or just within yourself, you'll find answers also. Ultimately, there is an unraveling of misery. In this age of instant gratification, people believe, okay, you go to a guru and either it works or not. So the guru looks at you and says some mantra, and then poof, you are instantly enlightened and perfectly happy forever after, or not. If not, you go to a different guru, right? Good luck with this path. It takes time. The answer is, it takes time. You have that's the answer. I'm sorry, I'm a party pooper. But the good news is that it gets better and better. That's the good news. And at some point, you don't care. Because at some point, misery is no longer with you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.